Past Lives was one of my favorite films of 2023. It had that subtle, melancholic quality that only really well-crafted films can pull off. Doing that with her debut film bumped Celine Song up as one of the most exciting emerging directors of the 2020s for me, and I was very excited when I found out her next film was coming out just 2 years later. However, after I saw her sophomore effort Materialists, I have to say, I was disappointed by how little of the tenderness and emotional intelligence that was all over Past Lives was present here. So today I want to go over what did not work for me about this movie. Spoilers for Materialists, let's get into it. Before that, I will say, there are certainly things to like here. The movie looks gorgeous. Some of the ideas about modern dating app culture it explores are interesting conceptually. This scene is really good, and that's about it. Look, let's start with casting. Pedro Pascal as a sexy, suave billionaire, you nailed it. Great job. Chris Evans as a broke, dead-end job loser is just wrong. Chris Evans is way too big and handsome in Hollywood for me to buy him in this kind of role. It's just straight up a bad casting choice. This is a Nick Miller type of role. Imagine Chris Evans playing Nick Miller. You see what I mean?
How do you think this is your towel? Do you even wash it?
No, I don't wash the towel. The towel washes me. Who washes a towel?
And Dakota Johnson, I don't want to be too mean. She can be good in certain roles, but she can only do the one thing. She can only be deadpan and vaguely mysterious. That's why she works in movies like Suspiria and Bad Times at the El Royale, but not in anything else really. She's just not good at expressing emotions and making them seem genuine, which feels pretty important for an actor to be able to do, if you ask me. And it's especially important for this movie. Yes, for a lot of it she's playing a cool, confident, one step ahead of you type of character, but anytime she has to get vulnerable and convey believable emotions, she's just not very good at it. And I would suggest an actress with a bit more range would have been better here. But off the bat, 2 of this movie's 3 main characters are pretty badly miscast. That's a problem. The next biggest problem with the film, it's a rom-com drama without very much drama at all. You look at this poster, you watch this trailer, Dakota Johnson, she likes both Pedro Pascal, who's rich but probably has other issues, and Chris Evans, who's poor, but gosh darn it, it's her old boyfriend, she cares so much about him, who's she gonna choose? However, the movie never actually gets into any of the love triangle drama that could come from that. It's a movie that almost seems terrified to have a real conflict in it. It just kind of goes along. There's the Pedro love story, then that stops. Then there's the Chris love story. There's barely any crossover between them. It's a fascinating movie because it seems to want to be this postmodern rom-com where actually it's really deep and doesn't succumb to the cliches of the genre, but then also desperately wants to have all these cheesy rom-com moments that will go viral on TikTok. You've got Pedro's "You Are Valuable" line, but more egregiously, Chris Evans has like 3 different super sincere rom-com monologues at the end. Anyway, those vibes don't mesh. Most of the movie isn't very fun or funny, it's a pretty cold movie, and then you try to have these rom-com moments, it just doesn't flow or feel authentic. And therein lies the problem with meshing these styles. Just to illustrate this point, one of my good friends hates Christopher Nolan's movies, and the main reason is that they take themselves very seriously and yet still have very dumb moments in them. Now, I don't necessarily agree with him on this, but his point is that movies can have dumb moments, and it's fine, but if a movie thinks it's really smart and takes itself super seriously and then has dumb moments, they stick out way more. And that's kind of how I feel here. If a dumb rom-com has dumb rom-com cliches and bad dialogue and moments, you don't really mind. But when a movie dressed up with the trappings of a prestige A24 film has those moments, they are much more noticeable. But it's almost like the movie is insecure about the fact that it's this basic, so it doesn't even try to build up any tension or drama, so it just ends up being kind of nothing. There are a couple scenes in this movie that are straight up bad, like to the point where they seem like a parody of a bad rom-com. There's the flashback scene with Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson that is hilariously badly written and acted. Could be from a spoof.
I forgot.
What? What did you forget? That you love me? I don't want to hate you because you're poor, but right now I do, and it makes me hate myself. I wish that I didn't care if we ate from a halal cart on our 5-year anniversary, but I do. And it's not because we're not in love. It's because we're broke.
And then this one is pretty rough because it's a very serious scene in the film, touching on the film's more serious themes, which we'll talk about later, but that's what makes it extra bad. If you haven't seen the film, Dakota Johnson is a matchmaker, and one of her clients gets assaulted on a date Dakota Johnson set her up on, and so she's suing the company. And Dakota Johnson wants to talk to her, but can't because of legal stuff. Pretty serious stuff, right? So then in the movie, Dakota Johnson puts on an honest-to-God Dick Tracy-style outfit with this enormous trench coat and baseball cap to go find this woman and talk to her incognito style. This seems like a parody of what someone would wear when trying to be undercover. I don't believe this character would own these clothes, let alone wear them. It's so cartoonish, legit Inspector Gadget-ass fit here. She is so much more conspicuous than if she just dressed normally, and it's so distracting for what's supposed to be one of the most serious scenes in the film. And then on top of that, the scene itself is kind of shittily written and goofy. Just because something is about a serious subject doesn't mean it can't be poorly done. And in fact, when it's poorly done, it stands out more. And this scene is just bad.
Fuck you. Pimp.
Let's talk about that subplot now, because this seems to be what the movie actually wants to be about. It feels a bit like the love triangle was more of an afterthought to get people in, and this plot about the woman who gets set up on a date where she gets assaulted, that's what the movie really wants to explore, and there's lots to explore there. This whole film is about modern dating, dating apps, matching people based on stats, presenting ideas of people and not the real thing, and then the dangers of meeting strangers for romance through these curated means. And that's compelling and very worth exploring. The problem, though, besides just that one scene being bad, lies in that this is not the main focus of the film, and so it becomes sidelined and therefore is not given much time to breathe. The conflict rises, and then it's over pretty quickly. You don't really get into these themes. Maybe that's why that scene ends up feeling goofy, because it's a truncated version of getting all these ideas across in one scene, trying to maximize time. Like, what that storyline is able to say about modern dating is pretty basic. Modern dating is materialistic and shallow. A lot of guys on dating apps are scumbags. Dating apps parade people around in a way that's gross. But these are quite surface level observations. Like, most people who have online dated could tell you these things. And again, I come back to, for someone who made something as interesting and deep as Past Lives, you'd expect something a little more. Or for it to be presented in a slightly more subtle or clever or in-depth way. And another problem is that these two movies, the kinda cutesy sort of love triangle movie and the movie about a woman who gets assaulted on a date, don't really work together that well tonally. Or in the story, they're generally quite separate. And while there is crossover thematically, of course, they do feel like two kind of disparate parts of the movie that don't flow together as well as you'd want. Two last things I want to bring up here that are more nitpicky and might just be a me thing, but I do want to mention them. The fact that this is about a rich people's matchmaker is kind of an interesting premise, but also makes it a bit unrelatable. Like, it's meant to be a stand-in for dating app culture, I get that. But the whole time I was distracted thinking, is this a real job that people do in 2025 when everyone just has Hinge? People hire matchmakers to find someone for them? And a cursory Google search shows that yes, this exists. But I don't know, it's not as prevalent as I think the movie maybe thinks it is. It kind of takes it for granted, like, here's this character, she's a matchmaker, of course. And I was kind of distracted the whole time thinking, that isn't a real job, is it? Is this the thing people actually have? It reminded me a little bit of The Substance, where this woman's job is to be a jazzercise instructor on TV in 2024. And then, again, I don't know if this is just a me thing, but the Pedro Pascal M. Night Shyamalan twist that he used to be short and he had his legs broken to get taller is objectively fucking hilarious to me, but it's played as a super serious thing in this movie. I get that height is a big insecurity for a lot of men, and that it plays a big part in dating. You have to put your height on Hinge, like, that's kind of wild. So it's worth going into for sure. And maybe everyone's out here getting their legs broken to get taller, but to me, that's the same as like a penis enlarging surgery, as in it's just too funny of a thing to take seriously. I don't know anyone who would actually do something like that, so the whole scene just fell apart for me. And I'm sorry, the scene is just funny in itself. Like, the timing of some of these lines feels like it's straight out of a Lonely Island sketch.
I don't think that you and I are a good match.
Is it because I got the surgery?
Knowing that just makes me feel like I actually know you.
Then what? It's really hard for me to feel like this is not about the legs.
And the dumbest part of that scene, and maybe the whole film, Pedro Pascal is like, women didn't even look at me before when I was 5'4" or whatever. And I'm thinking, you're telling me no women were interested in Pedro Pascal, one of the most handsome men in the world, who also in this movie is like a billionaire? Height plays a factor in dating and in men's confidence, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that a lot of women would still date handsome, charming billionaire Pedro Pascal, even if he was a short king. Ultimately, Materialists is a rom-com drama with very little romance, comedy, or drama. It seems stuck between multiple worlds, that of a serious, subtle A24 movie, or a cheesy modern rom-com, that of a love triangle story, or of a more serious look at the shallowness and dangers of modern dating, and it all just comes out as kind of a half-hearted, wet fart of a movie. In a weird way, this almost feels like a shitty American remake of a better foreign film. You know, the ones where they copy and paste the aesthetics while missing the larger points of what made the movie work, and they cast big American stars who don't really work in the roles. And that's oddly what this felt like, despite not being a remake of anything, and coming from an obviously very talented director. So look, I'm still looking forward to seeing what Celine Song does next. I will be there for her upcoming movies. Maybe this was a blip, maybe this was her Hollywood paycheck moment, who knows. And again, I should say, this was a very negative video. It's not god-awful or anything. It is totally watchable. I guess I was just expecting more than totally watchable. So, those were my thoughts on Materialists. What did you think of it? Let me know down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, check out my Instagram at BHL_Hudson, my Letterboxd at RealBHLHudson, and subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.